Hey, men, I'm Todd with Empowered Men Coaching. Today, we are lucky to have Brad Salzman here. Brad is a psychotherapist and relationship coach and founder of the New York Sexual Addiction Institute. We're going to be talking about porn addiction and sex addiction today. Brad is a graduate of Yale and Columbia Universities, so he's pretty smart, right? And is a certified sexual addiction therapist with 20 years of experience helping people to overcome their addictions. He's internationally known as an expert in the assessment and treatment of pornography and sex addiction. And he frequently appears and is quoted in articles about sex and sexual addiction in the New York Post, the New York Observer, BuzzFeed, Daily Mail, and many others. So Brad's here today. He specializes in intensive treatment of pornography and sex addiction and unwanted compulsive sexual behavior. And he does this in person and online with clients all over the world. So welcome, Brad. Happy to have you here today, man.
Thanks very much, Todd. Thanks for having me.
All right. So let's start with porn addiction. It's something that I judge, or porn is something that I judge most men are familiar with. Some men have issues with it. Some men may not. But I guess the first question I have, Brad, is porn really addicting?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great question. And I think that there's a lot of emotions that come into answering that question. I think that we, as a culture, I think that we have a lot of messages that tell us that really porn is harmless. It's sort of a harmless pastime. I mean, if you watch, TV shows or movies or whatever, people joke about it. People talk about it very openly, the fact that they look at porn and they masturbate. I think that Pornhub had an ad for the Super Bowl either last year or the year before, which just shows a sort of, the widespread acceptance for something which just until recently was considered to be a very shameful behavior. But I think the unfortunate truth is that pornography is addictive. Again, this is different than when you or I were growing up. Before there was the internet, pornography was not really, you didn't really get people who got addicted to it because it was so much harder to get, right? There was, if someone had pornography, maybe someone had their dad's dirty magazine or something like that, or maybe even a couple of them. But that was basically it. If someone wanted to get more, they'd have to go and drive across town, and risk bumping into someone you might know. And things were very expensive. You could spend $50, $60 for a single video, right? So all of those things, the accessibility, the anonymity, and the affordability, all three of those things in the past kept people from getting addicted. But now, because of the internet, you have all three of those things. It's sort of a perfect storm. It's called the AAA engine. Again, affordability, accessibility, and anonymity. Put all three of those together and people can get addicted very quickly. Also, there's unlimited varieties as well, which, there's enough there to keep you going forever. It's basically a bottomless pit of different free pornography that can keep a person coming back for more and more and more.
Yeah, I think that's true. I've read some articles that have differing opinions on whether watching porn remodulates the brain or not. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the evidence is actually pretty clear that it does. And again, we're used to thinking of addictions as, drugs and alcohol, right? I think that recently we're becoming people as a society, we're becoming more open to the ideas that it's not just alcohol or illegal drugs, right? I think we know that you can get addicted to prescription medications, right? I think we know that people can get addicted to exercise, people can get addicted to gambling, and that's true for sex as well. As far as whether you said pornography or sexual addiction remodulates the brain, the answer is yes, from what we can tell. When a person, and let's say we compare it to cocaine, right? Okay. When a person takes cocaine, their brain is flooded with all this dopamine, right? And as most people know, dopamine is a neurotransmitter that's associated with reward, right? And So when we get all this dopamine, it makes us feel good, right? What happens over time when someone is addicted to cocaine is that their brain will start to say, hey, there's so much dopamine coming in, I don't need to make my dopamine anymore. And the brain will actually stop making its own dopamine. So what happens then is then when a person stops using cocaine, a person gets this tremendous withdrawal and their brain starts to actually, they go into like a panic mode of where am I getting my dopamine? And that's one of the ways people get hooked. So just like that's true with cocaine, that's also true with other drugs and other behaviors as well that trigger a release of dopamine. When there's a lot of dopamine being triggered, the brain will actually re-regulate itself so that it's not producing its own dopamine. And that's how people can get hooked.
Yeah. So I've talked to men who tell me they use porn, and I don't get the sense that it's affecting their life negatively. Of course, I could be wrong because I don't know all the backstory. And then I've talked to men who use porn and it's totally consuming them. It's affecting their waking hours. It's doing a lot. So how much porn is a problem?
Well, I think that it's a great question. I think that for a lot of the guys who may be telling you that porn is not a problem, those guys may or may not be in a serious relationship. I think that a lot of guys think that porn is not a problem while they're single, right? Or they're in a relationship where their girlfriend, let's say, doesn't have any demands on them, right? Or not too many, right? I think when someone is in a committed relationship, right? And let's say they are either their girlfriend or their wife is not happy about them looking at pornography and doesn't want them looking at pornography. Maybe their wife is hurt by them looking at pornography. They think it's cheating, right? So now the guy's like, okay, well, I can stop, no problem, right? Because that's what he was telling himself all along. Yeah, I can stop anytime I want. And then he tries to stop and he realizes he can't, right? There was a movie that came out, I don't know, about 10 years ago called Don John, about this guy who was, his character was dating Scarlett Johansson, right? And this character who himself, he was, very handsome and very cool and all that. He was dating this beautiful girl, but he found that shortly after starting the relationship, he preferred to masturbate with pornography rather than to have sex with his beautiful girlfriend, right? And I think these are the things that when people realize, uh-oh, I have a problem. So as far as, you said that you have clients there that say it's not a problem. It's true. Some people may be able to use it, but I think that in some ways, pornography, the new pornography, the pornography, internet pornography, it's a lot like crack cocaine or even like heroin in the sense of like, is there a healthy dose of heroin? Is there such a thing as using heroin recreationally, or does everyone who use it wind up getting addicted? And does the addiction ruin their lives? And I'm not sure if there's such a thing as a healthy dose of pornography. That may sound pretty extreme, but again, if you've seen what I've seen, that there's so many people from all walks of life who are really suffering from this addiction. I'm not sure that there really is any amount that's actually harmless.
Okay. All right. I like that analogy with heroin or the crack cocaine. Like, what is this? What is an okay amount? And that context is like none, right?
Yeah, sure.
So if a man's using pornography and he doesn't think it's a problem, what are some signs that maybe it is a problem? Or what tips a man off that, oh, yeah, I got a problem here and I probably need to get some help? What do you see?
Well, again, I think until a person tries to stop it, they're often unaware. I am working with a client now who he was dating a girl very seriously for 3 years, and they were living together for part of that relationship, for part of that time. And he didn't really think anything of it. I mean, of course, he kept it a secret from her. He says that in 3 years, they never discussed it once. It never came up. So for him, he thought, okay, what's the big deal? Again, we are getting a lot of messages from society that it's a harmless pastime. It's sort of a victimless situation, and as long as she doesn't know, she doesn't get hurt, right? But I think that people who find they need it more and more, one of the the classic hallmarks of addiction is escalation, right?
Okay.
So, maybe before they only needed it once a week. Now they need it, multiple times a week or every day, right?
Okay.
Or even, or yeah, multiple times in one day. The type of porn might become more extreme. That's also another, again, someone's not getting high on the same amount of the drug, so they need to up the dose.
Okay.
You do that with pornography by going to more extreme type of pornography. And another one, which is probably the most painful and the most disturbing, is something called porn-induced erectile dysfunction. And this
Okay.
is something which 20 years ago was completely unknown in the medical community. And I remember discussing this with a urologist many years ago, and he said, impossible, no such thing. Now it's actually a widespread phenomenon that you have guys who are otherwise could be very healthy in their 20s having problems getting erections. And that's even erections, not just with real people, but even with porn. That after a while they get so desensitized to all the pornography that they've watched that they literally can't get an erection, or if they do, it's a very weak erection, and they're having problems having orgasm. So, and this, when this happens to people, this is definitely, sort of hits the panic button for them. They say, oh crap, I really have a problem. I need to get help.
Yeah. So the erectile dysfunction issue sounds like that's quite a, I mean, that's like end game or something, right? But frequency and type is probably something a man could take a look at himself and say, like a year ago, where was I at with this, or six
Sure.
months ago? And
Sure.
what am I looking
Also,
at now? Yeah.
yes. Also, I would say, if people find that they are missing other important things in their lives, to look at porn. So instead of going out with friends, they'll look at porn. They will try and find ways to maybe when they're at work, they'll keep on taking bathroom breaks during the day to go to the bathroom and look at porn. You know,
Okay.
all of these things, if a person is paying attention, they will start to see some of this stuff. But the way addiction works a lot of times is, it kind of keeps us from paying real close attention and saying, oh yeah, this is normal, it's fine, it's nothing, I can stop whenever I want.
Yeah.
Sometimes someone has to really hit a brick wall before they say, okay, wow, I didn't realize this is much more serious than I thought.
Yeah. So you brought up an interesting point about the man maybe not being aware, thinking he can stop anytime he wants.
Yeah.
So would an appropriate challenge be go porn free for a week and see what happens?
A week isn't really enough. I would say go for a month,
A month?
right?
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I'm working with a young guy now. Young, he's in his 30s, and he said, I think there's this No Fap November. I don't know if you heard of that one. No
Okay.
Fap November, and fapping is of course a euphemism for masturbating. But he said that he tried to do it, because it's like a thing. It's like, what is it like? There's some other thing where people grow a mustache for
Yeah.
a month. There's, all
Beardu-
these.
Bearduary. Bearduary is in January where you
Oh
grow
yeah,
beard in
okay. So
Bearduary.
so it's one of these things. Hey, try it for a month, and I'll tell you that hit him like a ton of bricks, because he was like, my gosh. I mean, I always knew I had an issue with this, but I never realized,
Wow.
just how serious this was, and that for him was a big wake up call as well.
Wow.
So I would say go for a month. If you can go for a month without looking at porn.
Yeah.
But by the way, I would say not looking at porn and masturbating, because if you're masturbating without porn,
Uh-huh.
your good chances are you're actually sort of recycling a lot of the stuff that you've watched. You're having what's called euphoric recall, and you're
Okay.
bringing to mind all this pornography that you've watched. So try not to masturbate or look at porn for an entire month. See how that goes. If you can pass that test, I would say maybe you don't have a problem.
Okay. That sounds reasonable and maybe severe if you are a man who's using porn regularly. You brought up the client's 30 years old. I have a question about
Yeah.
age. Do you see a difference in porn use or severity between men under 30 and men over 30? Is it the same? Anything?
I think it's about the same. What's interesting is that probably in the last 10 years, I've had a lot more clients in their 20s coming in. And I was actually just reading about this recently, that they're saying that millennials are, generation therapy, right? They're the therapy generation. A lot of millennials grew up with parents who themselves went to therapy and who talked about therapy and are not embarrassed about it. So for a lot of them, going to see a therapist is something that they are very comfortable doing and, not ashamed about. So I've seen a lot of guys in their 20s. I think also guys, the younger they are, the more likely they were to get exposed to, high speed broadband internet pornography at a young age. Right. I'm saying for kids who are now, for kids who are now, or someone, let's say he was 20 right now, he basically, smartphones came out in 2007, 2008. So this guy grew up with a smartphone, right? So you have a smartphone. It's basically like a pornography machine. It's an unlimited free pornography machine in your pocket. There's plenty of research that shows that the younger someone is exposed to an addictive substance, the more severe the addiction will be, right? So a kid who starts smoking cigarettes, at 10 is more likely to have a more serious addiction than someone who started in their 30s.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes sense to me. All right.
Cool. That being said, Todd, I've had clients in their 70s. I mean, this is not, in their high 70s. I think that's probably the oldest. I'm trying to remember if I had someone older than that, but it's not uncommon at all for guys to still be struggling with this. If they did not, in other words, if they didn't get help sooner, this is something that can continue to haunt someone for years, and even they could be grandparents, and they can have, grown grandkids and still be struggling with this kind of thing.
Yeah. Wow. How do you think porn affects a man's self-esteem? Is it related?
I think it's a great question, and one that I don't think we talk about enough. I've recently sort of been thinking a lot about this, and I think that, again, it may start out as something sort of innocent or mindless or, thoughtless, just sort of, hey, I'm looking at porn, everyone looks at porn. I think over time, I think that a person, it starts to affect how they feel about themselves. Definitely. It's sort of like, imagine, I don't know, watching someone do something that you kind of feel like after a while you feel like you can't, right? In other words, it seems like, this guy in the video, it seems like, he's having sex with, unlimited, super hot chicks, right?
Right.
And after a while, I think a person starts to think, well, they start to feel less than, you know what I'm saying? And they start to think, or conversely, they start to think that they should be entitled to that too. In other words, if all women are super hot, and exactly, 19 years old and will do anything you want sexually whenever you want, that will also mess with a person's expectations, where they start thinking, my real life girlfriend, she's only like a 6 or a 7. I deserve a perfect 10. And I deserve, one who's always on and always willing to please me sexually. But going back to your question, I absolutely think that affects their self-esteem. I think they feel less than other men. I think also if they have, it's anything I think that people feel ashamed of, or that they feel is a secret that they have to keep, makes them feel worse, makes them feel, low, makes them feel like a bad person. So I think if people are carrying around some kind of a secret like that, it will definitely make them feel worse about themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. My experience has been, what is secret has power, or has power over us. And those things that we may feel shameful about or keep secret, if we can share or bring it out into the light with a trusted person, suddenly that grip loosens itself a little bit, and it's not quite as tight. So what would you recommend a man do who suspects he has a porn addiction problem? It's getting in the way. What should he do?
Well, I think going back to what we said earlier, maybe give themselves some kind of a test, right? See if they can go 30 days without looking at porn and masturbating, or seeing how it may be, pinching, see how, where it's causing them pain in their lives. And if they decide that this is a problem and they can't stop it, then I think, they should get educated. They should start, reading up about it on the internet. They should read up about what, how people can get better. There are some forums online. There's like the NoFap forums. There's plenty of videos on YouTube that people have. I have my own channel on YouTube also, where I talk about some ways that people can recover. There are 12-step groups that people can do, such as Sex Addicts Anonymous or Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, and those can also be very helpful. But I really think that if someone is serious about this, I really think that ultimately, as well as all the other things I mentioned, I really think that therapy is very important, because even if in other words, if it's not just enough to sort of put a Band-Aid over the problem, right? And it's not enough just to stop. If you can stop it for a while, but if you have a real addiction, that compulsivity is going to manifest somewhere else, right? So I've had clients who were able to give up, the compulsive sexual behavior, but then they put on 20 pounds because now they're eating compulsively, right? Or I've had clients who gave up sex and became compulsive bodybuilders or compulsive marathon runners. So it's really important to have someone there who can, who can give you feedback about yourself, because we can never really be objective about ourselves. So having an outside party and someone who's trained in helping people to overcome addictions can make a huge difference in their lives.
Excellent. All right. And Brad, how does a man reach you? So he needs help. He's addicted to porn. He's addicted to sex. What should he do?
So, I mean, you can just, you can Google me, Brad Salzman. I'll give you all my contact information there. Okay. You can maybe put it in the description there of the video. But you can check me out on bradsalzman.com. You can check me out on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Instagram is actually in the process of developing that.
Okay.
But you can find me online and reach out. I do offer a free consultation if people are serious about starting therapy, and I'm happy to help if I can.
All right, fantastic. Well, I'll make sure that your contact information is included here below the video. And Brad, I just want to say thanks for taking time to talk to us and share your experience and understanding about something that has become mainstream, but is really messing with men, and it's causing issues.
I think so too, Todd. And I think it's something that we're just starting to wake up about this, but there's still a long way to go before people realize, how bad this problem is.
All right. Fantastic. Thanks, Brad. Appreciate your time. Thanks, men, for listening, and we'll be in touch. Take care.